Hey guys. So recently I made a video on Xbox Series X versus PlayStation 5 and why I think Xbox has a better long-term strategy, and that was my fastest ever video to 1,000 views. It was also one of my only videos to 1,000 views. Shit. But today I want to continue that momentum and talk about something I'm really passionate about recently, and that being Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. And today I want to talk with you guys about what I think both Sony and Microsoft can do to really forward their momentum into the coming generation, and what they can both do to be as successful as possible, at least from my eyes. And hopefully you guys enjoy more in this Xbox versus PlayStation series, because Lord knows you guys don't like the other ones. So first off, let's start out with Xbox, as I've already made a video talking about their strategy and why I think it's so smart. So let's just go over it a little bit again here today. So for Xbox, their strategy is actually quite a bit different than Sony's approach. And that's because Xbox is actually trying to build an ecosystem around games as opposed to just focusing solely on their console experience. And what I mean by that is, instead of focusing on just pure games, Xbox is actually looking for a multitude of things in their platform, including Xbox Game Pass, including xCloud, including backwards compatibility, and allowing gamers to play games across multiple platforms, including all Xbox, new and old, and the PC, and crossing our fingers, hopefully the Nintendo Switch in the future as well. And this strategy really lends itself well for Microsoft. As you can see, they aren't solely focused on the games anymore. What they're trying to do is build an entire really conglomerate of services that can be used across the gaming landscape, and they're trying to capture gamers on every platform. That way they're using some sort of Xbox service, as opposed to just making good games that people come to the Xbox to play. But it's not just that. Because recently, Xbox has been acquiring a lot of studios as well for producing their own in-house first-party games, and they're now almost to 18 with some new rumored studio acquisitions coming next month. And it seems obvious that while Xbox is focusing on all of these other services that I've already alluded to, they also have a firm grounding in getting some solid new AAA games out to their customers as well. But this is where their strategy differs from PlayStation, and where I think they can get a big, strong, firm grasp on the market as it stands today. And that's because while PlayStation is getting all these new studios to create games, they aren't hell-bent on keeping these games on the Xbox platform. They're okay with having these games on PC, on what I would likely assume is Switch if they ever create a deal with Nintendo. And quite honestly, I could see a world where Xbox would be totally okay with Xbox exclusives being on the PlayStation as well. And that's because Xbox's best way forward, at least from my calculations, is to just be as gamer friendly and as open as possible. Xbox should be trying to get Game Pass on every platform. They have it on PC and Xbox, but you better be darn right that they're trying to get it on PlayStation and Nintendo as well. As from their point of view, that's just a good deal for them. It doesn't matter if PlayStation gets more sales because people can now play all the Xbox games on PlayStation and PlayStation, or if Nintendo gets all the sales because you can play Mario and Xbox titles on Nintendo. For Microsoft, that doesn't matter, because their strategy should focus on just creating these services that can go all across the gaming landscape. That way they can dip their feet into every single ecosystem in gaming right now, and before you know it, Xbox will be a part of every single thing you play. And even with services like xCloud, this can also be moved over to other manufacturers like Nintendo and Sony. If xCloud, the service, continues to grow and proves to be more stable and long-lasting than Stadia, for example, then quite honestly, I could see a world where Sony and Nintendo use xCloud for their own services, as it would provide a benefit for them as well. Xbox has made a calculated decision to start really opening their services, kind of like open APIs in software development for anyone that works in that industry as well. And it's a good strategy for capturing a wider audience, not just Xbox players and PC players, but players around the ecosystem. And I really do think that Xbox should just stick to their strategy that they are already committed to, as long term, this is going to result with them having an enormous ecosystem and stranglehold over the entire gaming industry as a whole, regardless of what platform you're on. Xbox's strategy shouldn't rely too much on really trying to get people to buy Xboxes. As weird as that sounds, I don't think that's the best way forward for them. They should instead focus on creating quality content from their first-party studios and putting that on Game Pass, backwards compatibility, and xCloud, and then extending those services across the gaming sector and swallowing everything up bit by bit. And really, from a business standpoint, I don't think there's any better way to go. But that's Xbox's side, and I think it's fairly obvious, even though a lot of people don't talk about it, that that's what they're trying to do, and I think it's a really smart strategy. But what I haven't talked about yet is what I think PlayStation should do, and how they should counteract what Xbox is doing, and what they can do to also carve out an enormous piece of the pie, which they already control in the gaming sphere. Because for Sony, well, they may not have that long-term vision that I am seeing from the Xbox group. What they do have is games and all the power from the previous generation. Regardless of whether you liked Xbox exclusives or Sony exclusives, I think most people can agree on the fact that PlayStation did win last generation. They sold more consoles, they had more players, and, well, overall, they just had more critically and commercially rewarded games. Sony focused on what people in the gaming industry actually wanted, the games, and they were rewarded for it handily. But now things are changing, as I've noted with Xbox, especially with their long-term visions, and I think Sony needs to start changing things up a little bit if they want to be able to compete long-term against the Xbox Series X and anything that the Microsoft brand is going to show off in the future. For Sony, they already have the games unlocked. They have multiple studios working on multiple different acclaimed games that people have grown to love. We can expect more from the God of War series and hopefully a new IP from Naughty Dog coming soon. And those will for sure be system sellers for the PlayStation 5 in and out throughout its life cycle. But what PlayStation also needs to focus on and remember is that it all too needs to start looking towards more consumer-friendly practices that will help them out long-term. For instance, I think it's important that PlayStation maybe starts to focus on letting their games go on to PC. And they've already started to do this as they're porting Horizon Zero Dawn over to the PC soon. And I think they know that long-term, they are in trouble if they can't at least sort of match what the Xbox is doing. They need to start giving their games to other platforms. That way they can make revenue from the PC as well, one of the fastest growing gaming platforms today because of things like Twitch and Fortnite. And it's important to realize, at least from Sony's point of view, that they need to start doing more than just creating games. They need to link with other services and put their games onto other services, otherwise they're going to fall behind. But they need to not lose their heart, because what won them the generation the last time was their games, and they should not lose focus on that. I think how Sony should see this generation is that Xbox, because they are backed by Microsoft, a bigger technological brand, probably has more manpower to create these big services like xCloud. And I don't realistically see Sony creating a similar service that is going to be up to the same sorts of quality. Instead, I think Sony should say, yes, maybe we do have to get on xCloud. Maybe we will take Game Pass. But what we're going to do instead is still focus on the great games we are making. We are going to give consumers a reason to buy the PlayStation. Sony should be telling their users that you should get a PlayStation because you're going to be able to play those Xbox games anywhere, because Game Pass is going to be everywhere, xCloud is going to be everywhere, but you aren't going to be able to play these PlayStation exclusives anywhere else. And I think, quite honestly, Sony's only way to continue is to keep up that momentum. They need to buy more studios. They need to let the creators have as much vision as possible, and they need to have the oversight to make sure they're making games that will be commercially successful. Overall, Sony needs to just stick to their plan, but become slightly more open. Sell to platforms that aren't their direct competition, like PC. Allow crossplay on all the new games coming out. That way PC players have PlayStation friends that they want to play with, and not just Xbox. There needs to be this ecosystem they grow, but not a direct competition with Xbox. Instead, they should carve out their own niche as they already have and keep making people buy PlayStations in order to play top quality games coming out of their first party studios. And that's something Xbox has already given up on, and it's something that PlayStation can keep the lead on. And while I don't know if that's necessarily as strong of a long-term play as opposed to what Xbox is doing, I still think it is the best way forward for PlayStation until they can figure out some other things they can work on. Maybe more advanced VR that will also make the PlayStation stand out from the Xbox as it already has. But for now, guys, I think that's the gist of what Sony and Microsoft really need to focus on for next generation, as they're both in a very interesting spot where competition is starting to rise from both sides, and it'll be interesting to see how both react and where they both stand 5, 10 years from now in the long term with the strategies they commit to today. But thank you guys very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Honestly, all the support on the last PlayStation Xbox video was really awesome, and hopefully I can respond to all your guys' comments here and talk to you about it. It was really fun last time. And also in the future, I'm going to continue to make those other videos that don't get as many views too. My streaming videos about kind of what I've learned in my monthly updates, because that's another thing I am very passionate about. And if you guys ever want to talk about any of the topics that I do talk about on my YouTube, feel free to go check me out at twitch.tv/FranklyGaming, or over on my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, links all down below. If you guys want to support me on any of those, I would really appreciate it. But thank you guys so much for watching today. I really appreciate it. And I will catch you all on the next one.